Welcome to Two Idiots, One Podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Bailey.
And Bailey, before we start today, I just want to ask you something.
Okay, what do you got for me today, Taylor?
Do you believe in time travel?
Do I believe in time travel?
Yeah, like if time travel, alternate realities, stuff like that.
I'm not opposed to the thought. It's really hard to say. I don't think it's time travel's a thing at this point in time, but it could be, in 60 years. Not for the public though.
Okay, well, because like the reason that I was asking is because it almost felt like, so you ever had a dream that was really real? Like it almost felt real?
Oh yeah.
So I had this dream the other day, and basically we were doing the podcast, right? But what we had done is we were not Two Idiots, One Podcast. We were Hard Facts and Opinion-Based Podcast, right?
That's interesting.
Well, no, because it gets even more interesting because that's what we were called. And on top of that, we had released our first episode being Apostle, not the double feature of a classic horror story and Unthinkable. Those did come, but they weren't as a double feature. They were like every week or whatever, you know?
That's really weird. So basically what you're saying is in your dream, the reality was the reality that we would be in the event that we had gone with the original name of the podcast and not scrapped that first terrible episode?
Yes. I mean, it was successful, apparently, according to the dream or whatever, but my thinking is, would we be successful if we had have done that? Because we scrapped it for arguably the greater good because it was bad. And I don't think we would have as many listeners as we have now, or we would even have a podcast if we had to release that.
I mean, I feel like had we gone with Hard Facts and Opinion-Based Podcast, and had we gone with Apostle, we would have no listeners. It would be the end of the podcast.
And so that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because if dreams are like, a reality, like a look into an alternate reality, then that one was super successful. So did we make the right choice?
It's hard to say.
You know what else is hard to say?
What's that?
The movie we're talking about today.
Donnie Darko?
Yes. Who's the writer and director?
Donnie Darko was written and directed by Richard Kelly.
Ooh, Richard Kelly.
Yes.
Not as cool of a name as Donnie Darko, but
No, it doesn't sound as superhero-esque.
it does not sound as superhero-esque. You are correct.
So basically what this movie's about is, after narrowly escaping a bizarre accident, a troubled teenager is plagued by visions of a man in a large bunny suit who manipulates him to commit a series of crimes.
Okay.
That's the IMDb summary.
The IMDb summary of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so without looking at the IMDb score,
Okay.
on a scale from 1 to 5, what would you give it?
I actually have different scores for this movie. I have one for the director's cut and one for the not director's cut.
Okay.
Or the theatrical release, if you will.
So what would be, so we'll start there. What's your theatrical release?
Theatrical release with no prior knowledge of the movie, for sure a 5.
Okay.
For the director's cut, I would give it probably a 4.
A 4. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So why would you give the theatrical one? We said like the without the prior knowledge or whatever, but like, is there more to it? Because I'm assuming that they're different, and I've always thought that the director's cut is better in a lot of instances. So
the director's cut adds about 20 or so extra minutes of footage.
Okay.
And without getting super into it, because we're going to discuss more of the concepts and stuff later, the reason I think the director's cut is weaker than the original is because in the original there is a lot more nuance and question as to what's going on, what happened. It gives you more opportunity to read into, interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the director's cut is really on the nose and makes the director's initial vision very, very apparent. What about you, Taylor? If you were being forced to score this on a scale from 1 to 5, what would you give it?
If I was being forced to score this on a scale from 1 to 5, I would probably give it a 4.
Okay.
I've seen both. I do agree that there is more nuance in the theatrical than there is in the director's cut, which you kind of, pick your poison. Which one do you like more for your cup of tea? But I would say I'd give it a 4 out of 5. So my question to you is, what did Roger Ebert give it on RogerEbert.com?
When was it released?
2001,
Not
A
the
Space
movie.
Odyssey.
The article.
October 26, 2001.
Oh, okay. So like shortly after the initial release?
Yeah.
I would say probably a 3 on his scale, so like a 4 or maybe a 3. 3 or 4.
3 or 4. On his scale, 2.5 stars.
So 3.5.
So 3.5 on our scale.
Yeah, I was about right.
I think we were close on that one. But no, I mean, maybe a 3.5. I don't agree with that one. I think that the 0.5 or whatever is a little cheating, but that's just me.
I mean, you have to have every, incremental difference you can when you score on such a low scale. Like if we were doing 1 to 10 and you tried to hit me with an 8.5, I'd be like, that's fucking stupid. But if we're doing 1 to 5 and you hit me with a 4.5, okay, that's the same as a 9 on a scale from 1 to 10. That makes sense.
Okay. I can see that where you're going with it. So a 3.5 is what he gave it. So a little bit above average.
It'd be,
A
75.
6. Yeah. Let me say like a 6 is what he would give it.
Yeah.
6 out of 10. Well, what do you want to start with? Because I know what I want to start with.
What do you want to start with?
I want to start out with a concept because this is a viewer recommended movie.
Yes.
So one thing that the viewer suggested that we talk about, and I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to talk about it, is the superhero aspect of Donnie Darko.
Okay.
What do you got for that one?
So I could definitely see Donnie Darko being considered a superhero. He shows that he has above normal intelligence. He has a different perspective, and he has a superpower in the sense that he can see the lifeline of people, where he can see, the orbs or going from their stomachs leading to where they're going to do their path.
Yeah.
And he also has knowledge of the altering timelines or the alternate universe that he's been thrusted into.
He does see that.
And, generally that could be considered a superpower, and he's a hero because he ultimately, which we're starting with the end, but he ultimately sacrifices himself in order to save the world. So that to me, paints him as a hero.
No, and I can see that. I understand the superhero aspect. I mean, because Gretchen even comments on it, like what's a name like Donnie Darko? Is that a superhero name?
Yeah.
Which isn't too far off of like I am so sorry, but like not too far off of Peter Parker, Spider-Man. I mean, technically they're both teenagers too. But I can see the superhero aspect. It's not the one that I'm drawn to. We'll talk about the other one here in a minute. But the one that I'm really drawn to is the Christ allegory.
Okay.
More than anything. But before we get into that, I can see the superhero one. Your points are valid. Everything that you said. I wanted him to have kind of a cooler costume. And I mean, technically speaking, if we're talking about the superhero one, I wouldn't say that he is. I would say the actual hero of this movie is Frank.
So sticking on the topic of superheroes.
Okay.
I think another good one like Peter Parker would be Clark Kent. Two different names, but similar sound.
Right. Clark Kent, Peter Parker, Wade Wilson.
Yeah. Speaking of that, even in the event that Frank or the Bunny Man is the superhero and it's not Donnie Darko, there's an argument to be made that has been made by various websites. There's an argument to be made that Frank and Donnie are the same person. Let me phrase that a little bit differently because I recognize that could be misinterpreted.
Okay.
So the Frank that Donnie shoots and the Frank that Donnie hallucinates or that visits him aren't the same Frank. have you've seen the poster of the movie that has Jake Gyllenhaal or Donnie Darko's face with Frank superimposed over it?
Yes.
So partially because of that is one of the origins for this theory.
Okay.
And basically what it is that Frank is the physical, I'm air quoting, embodiment of the universe, or the universe's path or the timeline that's supposed to happen.
Okay.
That's being projected by Donnie, and it's actually like an embodiment of his ability to see how the universe is supposed to be. Donnie is a physical embodiment of him, and he's telling him what he has to do, but that's because this movie is about free will. Like, that's one of the most important things on it. So his superpower is the ability to see. It's Frank is telling him what to do, basically saying, hey, you don't have free will. I'm guiding you, but it's just an embodiment of himself or a projection of what he feels inside. Does that make sense? I know I kind of rambled that.
I don't agree with that, and here's why.
Okay.
So the way that I look at this movie, the intro to it can be seen as him falling into an alternate reality, right? Every time that he sleepwalks and ends up somewhere, he's been dropped into the alternate timeline. I would argue that that's not the case and that he is existing in his timeline, but both timelines have knowledge of like each other, right? Like he's able to connect with the other one so they know what's going on, but they're separate entities. Because the Frank that he shoots in that timeline is not the same Frank that ends up at the end of the movie, but it's the same Frank that is in that timeline, just in the future. It's like the future timeline of the alternate timeline, if that makes sense. It gets like, this movie's so convoluted sometimes. But that is Frank. He just came back in order to basically save himself and all of humanity by having him be sacrificed in that timeline, which kind of I don't know, because that timeline makes sense because it closes the wormhole in between the two.
Well, so you're trying to close the loop, and that's not possible.
No, yeah, you're right.
It's intentionally not possible because the jet engine isn't supposed to be explainable.
But it is explainable.
It's not after the loop is closed. It's not after the alternate timeline is destroyed. Because basically the way it works, from my understanding, is Donnie's supposed to be killed.
Right.
He doesn't get killed, and that casts him into an alternate timeline. Like, when the second the engine falls and doesn't kill Donnie, that timeline has basically froze, stopped, paused, basically, and the timeline that he's continuing in is just an alternate version of the same timeline. So if you imagine a straight line
that splits in two,
yeah, that Y's, only one of the Y's is blocked.
Like it just stops.
Yeah, basically, because once the other path is taken, the alternate timeline starts. And in this timeline, it's the timeline that we view throughout a majority of the movie.
I would argue that this is the good timeline, though.
I think that the timeline where Donnie lives is likely a better timeline, other than the fact that it ends with the world ending, simply because, the child predator, gets caught.
You mean Patrick Swayze?
Is it Patrick Swayze?
Yeah, that's who it is.
I thought it was Cunningham.
Well, no, that's the... I hate you.
I know.
I see what you're saying.
But I would say that the timeline where the world ends is arguably happier up until Gretchen dies.
But does the world actually end?
So the world ending could be metaphor for Frank's character dying. If with the argument that you're making that it was Frank going back in time to save himself from getting shot by Donnie.
So the way I look at it is that Frank is going back in time to save himself. Okay? Like, that is what he is doing. He, maybe in this parallel universe or the alternate timeline, because what you said was a line that splits in two and then one stops. I think that he's going back to make sure that the original, he's trying to unfuck the timeline, basically.
Yes.
That's what I see.
I mean, that's fair. So he's classified as the manipulated dead,
Mm-hmm.
which basically is someone who died in the tangent universe or the alternate timeline. So the timeline that was created from Donnie living, there are people who died in that timeline.
Yes.
And essentially what the manipulated dead means is that because they died, they were imparted on some knowledge or something that made it to where they were manipulated in a way to act to get Donnie to do what he does. Another example of the manipulated dead is Donnie's teachers, played by Drew Barrymore, and her husband in the movie. I don't remember what his name is, but he's the science teacher.
Doctor something.
Yeah. So they're both manipulated dead. Everyone who's showed at the end of the movie and like the flashback after Donnie died, and it's showing them basically like some of them tear up. It shows like Frank, and at the end of it, he covers his eye. And
Right.
All of that is when they wake up, they remember as if it was a dream everything that happened in the alternate timeline. So Jim Cunningham remembers, his house being burned down and then finding his child porn and then being, arrested.
Yes.
And so him going back, you're entirely correct. His intention in going back was to stop himself from dying. But the reason wasn't because he died and was like, oh, fuck, dying sucks. He went back in order to make it to where the timeline was corrected so the world didn't end, because that is his role as a manipulated dead.
Is to save the world.
Is to help facilitate Donnie saving the world.
So he's the real hero.
I mean,
like, so the superhero allegory is more Frank than anything. Like, Frank's the real hero of this.
Well, I mean, that's like saying that Alfred is a hero in Batman because sometimes he gives Batman the last piece to the puzzle so Batman can go do the thing.
Yes, yeah. Alfred's really the star because if you look at it without Alfred, there is no Batman, right?
Okay, that's fair.
Like, Alfred took care of Bruce in order for him to become Batman.
Right.
Like, there is literally no Batman if you do not have Alfred.
Right, just like Frank guided Donnie so that he would flood the school, which, caused that book to stop being taught, which caused Drew Barrymore's character to start teaching a different book, which prompted him to burn the house down instead of, flooding it again. And him burning the house down prompted it to where his mom had to go on the plane trip, which put the plane that put the engine that went to his room out.
Yeah, like, it's all predetermined.
Yeah, and it was all manipulated by Frank basically guiding Donnie. So, no, I'm in agreement. I recognize what you're saying. I feel that.
Yeah, no, he's trying to get there. But, I mean, I kind of look at it as Donnie is a representation of Jesus because he sacrifices himself for the greater good, like how Jesus did.
I mean, that's fair.
And I feel like the religious themes of this movie are very there. I mean, if you look at it, it's basically Patrick Swayze is an evangelical preacher. The like the TV evangelicals,
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. So
Like-
it's worth mentioning, and I'm not trying to cut you off,
Yeah.
but it's worth mentioning that they go to a private Catholic school.
I was going to get there
No, I figured.
because it would be too easy to make the connection of they go to a private Catholic school that teaches this, and then, he has the CP charges, and, the Catholic Church did the thing with the altar boys. But, yeah, that was the connection there, but you ruined that, but that's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was trying to make a joke out of it. Doesn't matter.
No, I'm sorry. I just fucked that up for you. I apologize.
No, it's fine. But, I don't know. He's basically the TV evangelical preacher trying to get you to do this thing and to buy his stuff. And then Donnie is basically saying you're a false prophet from what you are saying because it doesn't make sense. And then starts helping the three kids that are having their issues that spoke on the mic about it, and he was like, well, you just need to not have fear. And then Donnie's like, you want to not be fat, get off the couch. You want to not get beat up, then kick the dude in the nuts. Boom.
You don't know what you want to be when you grow up.
Nobody fucking does.
So that's Spencer, right, from iCarly?
I don't know on that one.
I'm pretty confident that the second dude, the guy who didn't know what he wanted to be when he grew up.
Jerry Trainer.
Yes. Is that who the actor was?
Yeah, it's the actor, but I don't know.
Yeah.
If he was in it, that's what his name is. That's Spencer from iCarly.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I don't know that.
I'm almost 100% confident that actor's, it's irrelevant. Totally doesn't matter. Pretty sure though.
Like I caught that Seth Rogen was in this movie.
I was watching it with my roommate, and I've seen this movie dozens of times, and this is the first time I noticed it was Seth Rogen.
Really?
Which, I mean, I guess I just didn't know who Seth Rogen was well enough to like recognize that back then. But the second he popped up, I was like, that's Seth Rogen.
So from what I read, his buddy, the main coke snorting bully, is in a band that plays the song California that is on the TV show The OC for their intro music. So,
I don't know what the OC is.
I don't know either, but it's popular. I know that. I've never watched it, but I knew of it. Let me rephrase that, but I've never seen it.
I don't even know what it's about.
Oh, it's a TV show. Just look it up after this.
Word.
But there's your fun little fact about them. But yeah, Seth Rogen was in this. I mean, there was a star-studded cast. Drew Barrymore is the reason. Her production company, I think, is who produced this.
Something Flowers production.
Yeah, it's like Fall Flowers or something. It's FF, I think.
Yeah. So back to the religious allegory. So Jim Cunningham is like the religious evangelist.
I mean, he's literally what Donnie calls him. He says, you're the fucking Antichrist.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what he is.
No, I feel that.
And it is if you look at it from a religious standpoint, it is the constant battle of good and evil, where Jim Cunningham is the Antichrist, Satan, whatever you want to call it, and Donnie is the savior, Jesus, trying to expose and defeat the evil.
I mean, that's fair.
I don't know. A lot of this is open for interpretation, but
although this is more of a joke than like serious commentary on the film. But I don't know if you can compare Donnie to Jesus when we see him almost beat his dick in front of his therapist.
I mean, yeah.
Like, that doesn't seem like a very Jesus-esque thing to do.
No, but he is like Jesus in this case. But no, I agree on that one.
So this isn't in regards to, conceptual stuff, and this isn't a continuation of the religious allegory present in this movie. But can we take a second to just appreciate the dialogue in this movie, especially between Maggie Gyllenhaal and Jake Gyllenhaal?
How do you suck a fuck?
Yeah, exactly. You fuck ass.
What's a fuck ass?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no, I really enjoyed that.
Did you hear that the boys' locker room flooded? It's full of feces.
What's feces?
Oh, baby mice. Aww.
Yeah, no. The dialogue in this movie, one thing I did want to talk about with like the dialogue is, why is everybody a fucking asshole?
That's something that I noticed. I don't know.
Like, everybody is so, in this movie, pessimism is king. Optimism is not a thing.
Well,
and they're all just like cynical assholes the entire time.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I thought something similar. It's interesting because most of the individuals that we see that portray optimism are either bad guys or are following the bad guy. Because Donnie's teacher,
Kitty?
Yeah. She is generally portrayed as like optimistic, but it's like the fake bullshit optimism.
Right.
And she supports Cunningham, who in most of his on-screen time is, he's smiling and he's trying to be joyous and jolly and happy.
Yeah.
And it's all bullshit because, he's doing the CP thing. He's like clearly a bad guy.
Right. He's a horrible human being, which Kitty can't believe after it's been exposed and thinks that it's a conspiracy theory to take down a good, innocent man.
Exactly.
But is it?
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't show anything, but I would imagine that the police wouldn't have arrested him if there was nothing.
I mean, they did find a room.
Yeah, no, they said, that was stated, but it was never given like super specific detail as to what it was. It was just said that it was CP.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't, like, we can make all the assumptions we want about him based on what I've seen. I'm assuming it's the absolute worst. But realistically, it could have been, something completely innocuous.
Innocuous, yeah.
Innocuous. That was painted into something it wasn't. There's no information provided to say for sure.
I mean, yeah, because I look at it as the whole movie is very open to interpretation if you don't watch the director's cut.
Yeah.
And because of that, there are certain things that you can say like that, and maybe I'm right, maybe I'm not right, but you can't tell me that I'm wrong, so I'm right.
Right. No, I feel that.
Yeah, what was the other thing? So like there's that was a really prominent aspect, but I would argue that a lot of this movie is super confusing for kind of no reason.
So that, like I said, that depends on what version you watch. I'm sorry, I accidentally fucking tapped the table with my shoe.
Okay.
But I think that depends on the version you're watching, because I agree with the original because of the missing scenes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It does feel really confusing. But in the director's cut, rewatching it, and granted, I've seen it a lot before.
Right.
But I had zero issues following it. And like I said, I watched it with my roommate partially.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of talked about it, not in super deep detail, but he got it. And he, clearly understood what it was trying to get at. We didn't talk about all of the concepts mentioned and stuff, but the main concepts that people talk about if you go to most online things, which is, is Donnie a superhero? Does free will exist? Stuff like that. Like, those are the major concepts and principles in the movie that are discussed. And he, first time watching the director's cut, clearly articulated to me afterwards in our conversation about it that he understood all of it. And he's a smart guy. I'm not trying to insult his intelligence, but that's the first time watching for the director's cut.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the not director's cut 3 or 4 times before I had a pretty good grasp of it.
Yeah.
And the director's cut makes it almost effortless. So yes, I agree that the original cut is pretty confusing, but I don't think so for the director's cut. It's pretty on the nose.
It's cut and dry.
Well, because it has the excerpts from the book, like about the manipulated dead and, the living receiver and all of that.
Tangent universe.
Yeah, exactly. It mentions the tangent universe in the director's cut, which I don't even know if that's ever explicitly stated in the original cut.
So, since I did watch the original cut, no, I knew about it because I've seen both, and it does help to see the director's cut. I think that's why I like it more, because you don't have to sit here and just the really confusing things about it. It's okay, here's the concept, we can work off that. But in the theatrical one that I watched on HBO, there's the book. The only thing from the book that they talk about is the lifelines, because he's in therapy talking about it, saying that maybe I need to go and pay her a visit because all this stuff is real and I'm seeing it. but that's about it. The only implication that is in the book or that of the book is that, and then basically they focus on it being written by Grandma Death
Yeah.
because she's a really interesting character because I believe that she has the representation of like balance in this movie because she goes from a nun, right, the religious, and this is also like still on that religious talk. She goes from being a Catholic, a person of faith, to being a person of facts because she leaves the whatever you call it, the compound. I don't think that's right, but like the nun,
Like the monastery or
yeah,
convent.
convent. That's it. Um, Goes and leaves that, and then becomes a science teacher. So instead of relying on faith, puts everything into facts, and then writes a book that is based off of both. Like the book is the best of both worlds because it's dealing with concepts that you have to put faith into because you can't really do them, but it's also, based off of these theories are based off of facts that people have. Like, because I mean, they even talk about, Stephen Hawking and stuff and the conversations that he has with his science teacher about the wormholes and the time travel is probably the best part of the movie, in my opinion, because it really, it explains a little bit better when you watch the theatrical one. Kind of gives you the idea and lays the groundwork for time travel, and it's just one of the interesting things. You're looking at me like I'm an idiot, so
No, I was just thinking about my favorite scene or what I think is the best scene of the movie.
okay, what's that?
Well, I mean, you can continue your thought.
No, go ahead. What's your favorite?
So I think the best scene in the movie is after Donnie has returned to the original timeline or has traveled back in time to stop the alternate from being created.
Uh-huh.
Um, when he is laying in his bed and you see the scene playing out where his dad's, passed out on the chair, TV static, his sister's walking in the door, and he's laying in his bed laughing.
Okay.
Like, I think that's the best scene.
Why?
Because the movie is about free will, how you don't have free will, and it's him accepting that he doesn't have free will and at peace with the fact that everything for him is about to be over or potentially about to be over, because in this, continuing with the religious talk, it's mentioned various times that he's agnostic.
Yes.
And that he doesn't necessarily believe that he doesn't have free will and he thinks he does. And to me, the moment where he is, gone through the alternate timeline where he was expressing his free will and getting, to that point to where he's like, oh, I have free will, but it results in the end of the world, so I guess I don't. I have to go back in time to stop Gretchen from dying and to, not kill Frank and all of this and that. And it's just the joy on his face as he's laughing moments before his impending doom. I don't know. I think that's the best scene. That's just my opinion.
Well, is that an alternate timeline? Does he actually go back in time though?
He actually goes back in time.
When?
What do
Like,
you
at
mean?
what point does he go back in time? Like, how do you know he goes back in time?
That's why it talks about like the vessel and everything. I guess he doesn't physically go. It never physically shows him going back in time, but it shows him taking Gretchen's body to the hillside where he watches the wormhole open over his house.
Yes.
So it's one of the things that's not really explained by the movie. It's just that you have to like accept.
Suspend your disbelief that he watched himself die, but he wasn't there, but he should have been.
Well, no, it's not even that he watched himself die, because he sees where the wormhole opens. Because so the way it works is in the alternate timeline, his mom and sister and the dance team are in the plane, right?
Yes.
The plane's flying. They pass over the area with the wormhole, destroys the plane. Engine gets sucked out and becomes a duplicate engine in the original timeline. So that is never explained. Why the wormhole opens, all of that, never explained. It's, just the way it is. In the movie, they talk about wormholes randomly. It randomly happens. It's just a thing that sometimes happens.
Right.
So I guess it doesn't ever explicitly show him traveling back in time, but the implication is that it's him made aware, traveled back in time, and is laying in his bed, having not have gotten up by Frank this time to leave, and dying, and it's him being stoked about it
Which that also doesn't make sense. Like, why did Frank?
because he's the manipulated dead. So him going back and waking him up, like, it doesn't make sense. But
No, because if he wanted to fix it, this whole movie could have been over very quickly if he had have just like not done that.
I mean,
The whole movie wouldn't have happened.
well, so see, that's why free will is important. Because the movie wouldn't have happened if it wasn't, quote unquote, Donnie's free will to listen to Frank and get up.
But it wasn't his free will.
Or was it?
No.
Was it not?
He literally, when he breaks the main water line and then puts the axe in the dog head, he said, dog statue, not an actual dog. He writes, "They made me do it."
Yeah.
Not one time in this movie did I think he had free will. Everything that he was doing was all predetermined.
I mean, that's fair.
Because that's the concept that he talks about. He's like, well, what's the fucking point if everything's predetermined?
Right. Well, that's why the religious stuff is so important.
Right. No, the religious stuff has to be there. Because from the religious aspect of things, everything is predetermined.
Yeah.
And then from the theistic side, everything is predetermined. From the atheistic side, it is, no, I have free will. I can do whatever I want. Like, whatever happens, but I make that choice. And I don't think that I don't even think him going back in time and doing the free will thing is real. But I don't know. This movie gets so confusing sometimes when you really start talking about it.
So, do you remember the intro scene?
Yeah.
When he's first going into the school with that cool tracking shot? So, the very first time he goes into the school the first time, it's Donnie walking and it tracks with the camera behind him and it shows his interaction with the bully. Mm-hmm. And then it does like a little spin and then it shows the bully again doing a bump off of Seth Rogen's hand or whatever.
Yes.
I thought that was a pretty cool scene.
Oh, okay. I hated the cinematography in this movie.
Really?
I think the cinematography is shit in this movie. The effects are dumb.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the effects aren't super great, but I thought the cinematography was good. I also like the beginning, the panning shots of Donnie riding his bike back to his house after waking up.
I mean, I don't, but that's just like a 1980s thing.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's supposed to fill you with nostalgia.
Right, which is why I respect that they did that, but I don't like it because I didn't grow up in the 80s, so I don't care. I watch 80s movies, so I know that that's what happens in them. They have those. But, the way they have the painting shots and then all of a sudden it like speeds up and then goes to be... There were a lot of redundant shots is kind of what I felt like they didn't need to be in there.
Imagine how you would have felt watching the full version then because you watched like 30 minutes less.
Right. No, there were a lot of things that just didn't need to be in there. Even the scene where he's stabbing Frank in the eye, basically trying to get through the portal or whatever, and he's like tapping on it with the knife. I was like, I don't know.
So, question: do you remember what was happening during that scene outside of it? Because during that scene, so it shows other interactions and then it cuts to him. It shows people talking about him. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So do you remember what they said exactly?
No.
So
you're moving away from the mic.
Sorry. Thank you. So if I remember during that scene, they were talking about how it's all in Donnie's head. Like it's not, or it's it's the parents talking to the therapist.
And she's saying that he's a schizophrenic that needs to up the medication
Yes.
because it's all in his head. And the reason he's doing these harmful things is because he's insane.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So I think that that is a scene that is meant to not necessarily discredit the doctor or whatever,
Uh-huh.
but I think that that's just a scene to show his mental state. You know what I mean? To like, because throughout it, his hallucinations, if his interactions with Frank are being classified as hallucinations,
Mm-hmm.
become more intense and more vivid. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yes.
So I think that the purpose of that scene was just to show continued degradation, maybe, of
Okay.
his mental health status.
Right. Where
Or
he's
I'm just saying for relevance.
okay. I can see that.
Yeah.
Well, what other concepts did you want to talk about?
So one thing that we haven't really talked about, although we kind of have, is the like political I guess aspect of this movie. I don't know if that's right because I don't want to turn this into a political thing, but the reason I think that there are a lot of like political elements that we haven't discussed at all is because even in the if you read some of the online like summaries of it, it explicitly mentions the presidential campaign that's happening, because this is in 88, which is an election year, and it takes
Right.
place in October, which is right before the elections. But it goes, so during the scene where the plane crashes through the first time, and I don't know if this is the same for the original or if it's just the director's cut, but during the director's cut, the Star Spangled Banner is playing on the staticky TV, and this is right after the conversation with Maggie Gyllenhaal. I can't remember her character's name, but
Elizabeth, I think.
oh yes, Elizabeth. So when Donnie's talking to his sister, and they're all at the family table, and she's talking about how she's voting for Dukakis.
Yes, which makes her dad mad.
Right. And so during that, they talk about taxation and stuff like that. And then the Star Spangled Banner plays. And then later in the film, they also talk about financial stuff with Kitty.
Yes.
So I'm thinking that all of that is supposed to be like, I don't know if criticism's the right word, but I don't think it's an Easter egg either. I wish I was more knowledgeable on 1980s politics, but I feel like there are political commentary that takes place during that I'm just not politically minded and aware enough to have knowledge on. But I was wondering if you caught anything I didn't and have any more information to spread on or to share on that, because like I said, I'm not super knowledgeable, so I don't know if it's actually there or if I'm grasping at straws because I lack the information.
No, I mean, I didn't think there was a political undertone to this movie. The only time that it really mentions politics is in the beginning, and that's kind of more to show the dysfunctionality of the family,
Okay.
in my opinion, because it wasn't very relevant, and I don't think it was anything. It was just, Elizabeth being an asshole because, teenage rebellion. I mean, Donnie calls his mom a bitch, and she says, "Our son just called me a bitch."
Yeah.
So I think that that's to show that the kids are doing their own thing, they're changing, and there's dysfunction in the family that's supposed to be perfect or something. I could be grasping at straws, but no, I didn't pay attention to it because I didn't think it was relevant.
Okay, so one more thing that I think has a little bit of relevancy in regards to politics, or at least like government trust, is when right after the incident happens, when it has the parents talking to the investigator.
The FAA.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the investigator is just like, "Oh no, we have no idea where it came from. However, sign these papers and never tell anyone anything."
I think that has more to do with like free will because in the car ride with his dad, he says, so we're not supposed to talk about something that we don't know anything about.
Yeah.
I think that plays more into free will.
You think so?
Yeah, in my opinion, it does. I don't think it plays. I mean,
No,
you could say that there's the free will of the political government not letting us do anything, and that a democracy is not really a democracy, and that we're all being controlled, and blah blah blah. But I don't know. I don't see that as what it was trying to get a point.
Hey,
I mean, it might, but
I just want to say that you said it and not me.
I mean, that's fine. I don't care. The government knows everything, and if they're trying to kill me, they're going to kill me. So, now one thing that I did want to talk about is there's a little Easter egg.
Okay.
I don't know if you caught on to it. I had to look it up, and someone summarizes it. I gotta find. I think it was like a Reddit post real quick. Just gotta find it.
I gotta find a Reddit post. Look at me searching on my phone on Reddit.
Yes, because it was. So the movie takes place in 1988. So this all has to do with 28/6/42/12. Okay, the number of 28 days,
6 hours.
42 minutes, 12 seconds.
Yes.
Okay. So that led me down this whole fucking huge thing. But this Reddit thread or post really summarizes everything. So to quote it, the movie takes place in 1988. Frank tells Donnie the world will end in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. If you add these numbers up, the sum is 88. When Samantha asks when she can have kids, Donnie says, not until 8th grade. Donnie mentions to his therapist that his dog, Callie, died when he was 8. He is later seen holding a stuffed dog toy in her office when she's being hypnotized.
Yeah.
Donnie jokes about the Back to the Future DeLorean, which had a speed of 88 miles per hour.
Yeah, it goes back in time. Yeah.
According to the television reporter, the fire at Jim Cunningham's house was extinguished sometime after 8 last night. The red-eyed flight that almost crashes is Flight 2806, which boards at Gate 42 at 12 a.m. The climax of Donnie Darko occurs 1 week before the 1988 U.S. presidential election, when George Bush won the November 8th, 1988, 11/8/88. The movie was shot for a budget of less than $5 million in 28 days, and there are 28 scenes in the director's cut of the film.
Okay.
So numbers play like a really big, huge, important thing. I just thought that was super intriguing because I caught it, and then I started looking at the numbers, and then I found that. But yeah, I don't know. Could all be crazy, and it could be the number 23 with Jim Carrey all over again. That's kind of what it makes me sound like. But
I'm super glad you said that because that's literally what I was going to say. I was going to say, how are you going to talk shit on the number 23 when you're doing the fucking thing he does?
I mean, yes.
That is literally the same thing he does that you were like, that's so fucking stupid.
I mean, yeah, it is. The fact that I did it was stupid, but it was, I don't know. There was the relevance of the 28 and adding everything to 88 being the Mach speed of 88 and...
Oh, no, don't get me fucked up. I think that's interesting as hell.
Yeah, that's spread throughout.
I just think that the fact that you were so hateful about the number 23 and now you're doing the thing.
Obsessing over the number 88.
Yeah, it's the same.
Or 8, I guess, in this case.
Imagine.
But yeah.
The hypocrisy.
The hypocrisy of that. But yeah, that's just, I don't know. That was something that I found to be super cool. Makes me seem fucking crazy when I sit there and talk about it, but
you just sound like Charlie from It's Always Sunny.
With what he's in the mailroom, the Papa.
Yeah, you
Pepe Loca or whatever.
Yeah, everyone knows. They've all seen it, or at least the meme. Even if they don't know what I'm talking about, they know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Do you have anything else?
I don't have anything else. I think we touched on all my topics. Do you have anything?
I have one more topic.
One more topic, okay.
Okay. And it's not even really a topic. It's just more of like commentary.
Okay.
Did you catch all of the like sexual repression and stuff in this? Like, I feel like one of the things that this is commentary on is sexual repression in the, like, you know, late 1900s in, small community or suburb, whatever. Like suburb America, 1980s commentary.
No.
What do you mean? You didn't see anything about sexual repression. So okay. So there are a lot of things that we can start with, but I'm just going to go through and rapid fire some of them. So when can I have a baby? In 8th grade. Donnie almost masturbating during the hypnosis section. So many conversations where Donnie's like, oh, I think about girls a lot. The fact that, what's her name? Her last name's Chen, I think. The Chet Up girl.
I can't.
I don't remember.
I don't remember her first name.
I don't remember her character's name. But so her character having the I love Donnie Darko, or the Donnie Darko book with all the hearts and stuff on it.
Okay.
Like, dude being a child predator.
But Donnie has sex with Gretchen.
Right. Well, no. So you can have sex and still be repressed. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of different scenes in it where it's showing that, like, people aren't acting on their internal desires, or alternatively are acting on it in Jim Cunningham's case.
No, I didn't get that.
I don't know. There are a lot of things that make me think that it's something that one is supposed to think about. But I don't have, like, any legitimate information. I just noticed that there were a lot of scenes where...
I would argue that's almost circumstantial.
I mean, anything can be considered circumstantial.
Right.
I mean, there could be two different Franks with different bunny suits. And the fact that, the Frank that got shot in the eye, is the same guy is just totally coincidence. It's not like this movie was deliberately made and everything's intentional.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of open-ended stuff.
Yeah.
But that's part of our free will is to interpret it.
No, I agree. No, I don't know. I couldn't find very much online about it. Like, I saw a few things, but it was mostly just one-off people saying, did you guys see this? And people saying, not really.
I mean, yeah.
Like, the conversation we just had about it is super similar to one of the conversations I read online where someone was trying to talk about sexual repression elements in Donnie Darko. So that's funny. But
yeah, no, I didn't catch that at all.
That's about all I have.
Yeah, that's all I have. You want to move into Bailey's Babbles?
Yeah, but it's not going to be as impressive as last week's. So, my Bailey Babbles today has to do with a personal question for you about culpability and free will.
Okay.
So, do you think that free will exists?
No.
No?
I mean, yes and no, I guess. I don't know. I'm
agnostic about it?
No, I'm free to do whatever, but okay, let's look at it this way. Biologically, we are meant to have sex with lots of people. Like, that's how we are, right? We have the free will to go out and just fuck. But society constrains us to have monogamous relationships instead of having polyamorous relationships. So I have the free will to go out and fuck whoever I want, but if I'm in a committed relationship, I can't do that. Now all my free will is gone because of constraints and, like, social aspects.
Okay, so you're not answering my question. So freedom of consequence and freedom of choice aren't what I'm asking. I'm asking, if you were to, like, decide that you wanted to go do something, how confident are you that you are the one who has decided to do that and that it hasn't been decided for you and you're just doing it because you think you want to?
Okay, so that's the free will that you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about legitimate grand scale master plan. Do individuals on an individual scale have legitimate free will? or is it perceived free will of, oh, do I want chocolate or strawberry?
I mean, I don't know how to answer this question because there's aspects of both, I guess. Because psychology tricks basically can make you not have free will.
Yeah, you can manipulate a person into behaving in whatever way you want, even if they think it's their choice.
Right.
That's what the manipulated dead do to Donnie
So I think.
in the event that he has free will.
So to answer your question, I mean, I don't. What you're asking is if my life is being determined by somebody else. Is that correct?
No. I'm
Okay.
asking if you think that your life has already been determined.
No.
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 Okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, I don't believe that.
Okay, so then I guess the next answer, or the answer to my next question, will be yes. So do you think that people have or are culpable for their actions in a legitimate moral and ethical sense?
So for the viewers at home, what does culpable mean?
Basically, to be held responsible for. Because in my opinion, based on my perspective, people don't have actual free will. I would argue that every quote unquote choice I've made was already determined that that's what I had to do. That's, the path I had to go on, because everything has meaning, and because everything has meaning, nothing has meaning.
So what you just said was the whole problem with religion for me.
No, I know.
If God exists
Uh-huh.
and has planned the entirety of my life before I ever existed, right?
Then you can't be culpable for anything, because if it was predetermined, how can you be at fault?
And God's a fucking asshole, because that means every bad thing was planned. So now what I am is a little insect inside, or I'm a rat in a maze that gets shocked to go to the end. Like, that's what I am. And if that is life, if my whole destiny has been predetermined before I even existed, and all the bad things are happening to me because somebody else made it that way, then the only free will I have is to kill myself, because there is no no, I'm being serious, because there's no point in living if I'm not in control of me. Like, I control myself, right? I'm a very firm believer in I do my thing, and the only person that tells me what to do is me. If someone has already determined my life, then there's no reason for me to live. Like, flat out, that's it.
It's so funny that that's always the first place you go.
What do you mean?
In any situation, like, the second you're confronted with adversity, you're just like, I'd kill myself. Fuck that. I'm done.
No, no.
You're like, adversity? Pfft,
I
all right.
I like adversity.
Where's the toaster?
That is not it. What you're
These
saying,
walls are looking awfully white.
what you're saying is so. What you're saying is basically the literal representation of hell for me. And that's why it would be like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to live.
No, I feel that.
Like, I control me. I should be held, because of the actions that I do, I should be held to a certain standard, right? Like, everybody is in control of what they do.
Are they?
Yes.
What if they aren't?
What do you mean?
What if it's all an illusion? Like, okay, so right now, I'm sitting here talking to you, right?
Yes.
I can tell you for a fact that I'm going to pick up my phone
No, you're not.
relatively soon.
No, you're not.
No, I know I am.
No, you're not. You're literally not going to pick up your phone.
Eventually I am.
Yeah, but you said relatively soon. That time has passed now. You just proved me right. You
Well,
have no free will, bitch.
I mean, I'm arguing that I don't have free will. Relatively is a matter of perspective. Like, that's relatively soon to me could be a totally different time frame, but that's irrelevant. So me making the statement, at some point I know I'm going to pick up my phone. What if the time I'm going to pick up my phone is already known? Maybe not by me, maybe not by you, but the, universe, God, whatever, knows, oh, this is when he's going to pick up his phone, for sure, no doubt.
Okay, but see, now
Then-
you're getting into what ifs, and I don't like what ifs.
I mean,
Because we can sit here all day and go, what if this, what if that? Because my biggest fear in life is looking back on my life and saying, what if? So I don't like them.
right. But what I'm saying is, you don't know that isn't happening.
Do I?
Yeah, I mean, you don't know, and you don't know what I'm thinking. Like, I don't know what hand symbol you're trying to do, and it's really confusing me.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to see if I could throw you off track because I'm exerting my will onto you.
Oh, okay. But what I'm saying, I mean, I'm wording it as a what if question, but that's
Yeah.
because my personal language it's not expansive enough for me to articulate the ideas I'm trying to. What I'm saying is, perhaps you think you're in control and you think that I'm a real person, but I'm not actually real. You're not actually real. And it's all just like an illusion.
What's your definition of real, though?
I mean, it's irrelevant.
No, it's not. What's
So-
your definition of real?
So, I mean, I'm not even necessarily giving my actual perspective. I'm trying to make interesting conversation.
Yeah, I know.
But in this scenario, real would be actual, sentient, capable of, its own thought, and not just a reflection of the thoughts that I implant on them.
Was that real?
Taylor, you're trying to make this too literal.
Was that real though?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not trying to be literal. I'm trying to, be philosophical.
I'm trying to be okay. we can be philosophical.
I mean,
Go ahead.
no. I mean, it's okay.
No, I mean, I don't know. Your question is,
You're not supposed to know.
well, it all depends on beliefs. I'm a very strong-willed individual, so I create my own destiny. Like whatever I decide to do is what I decide to do. That's how I believe.
Okay.
I believe that I'm in control of things, and I don't like when people try to manipulate me because I can see it. So then I'll give you an example. Just today, someone asked me, they were like, hey, can you do this? Well, actually, I'm not even going to get into that. I don't want to talk about that. I'll tell you later. But basically, when it's like buying a car, I'll use that example. Do you have free will when you buy a car? Yes. No, you do. Well, we shaking your head no. Why?
I mean, I've been to places where I thought I wanted to buy one car, and the salesman was very, very adamant that I didn't, and didn't give me the opportunity to actually look at the stuff I cared about.
Okay, so what'd you do in that situation?
I didn't buy a car.
Exactly, you walked away.
Right, but did I choose to walk away, or was the universe not intending for me to purchase a car?
No, you chose to walk away.
Okay.
If the universe didn't want you to buy a car, then again,
It would
I
have
don't
given
know.
me an asshole salesman who wouldn't show me what I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I don't know. I don't think anything is predetermined. I think that everything,
But-
like let nature take its course or whatever. You can exert your will onto others. You can manipulate people that may or may not be manipulated. I don't know, but you can do it. But that's your choice to do that.
I mean, that's fair.
So yeah, there is free will, and then there's not free will because you're being manipulated into stuff. So it's like 50-50.
So you think manipulation destroys someone's free will?
Yes, there is no free will if you're being manipulated because you are doing whatever the manipulator wants you to do.
But wouldn't one choose to fall into such a state?
No.
Dog, I don't know. I don't think I've ever been manipulated since reaching adulthood where I wasn't aware and willing to go along with it.
I mean, I don't, but see, that's the difference. I don't want to go along with it. If I'm being manipulated, then I don't go along with it. I try to play the manipulation game back at them to get them to do what I want because now I know exactly what you're trying to do. So now it's just a battle of wits. Like, it's fun. I don't know. But no, I don't. Maybe free will exists. Maybe it doesn't. Who's to say? Who cares?
I mean, that's fair.
Life is meaningless. So if life has no meaning,
If life has no meaning, then how come you were bitching last week about people buying medium and large popcorn?
because that is a perfect example. I'm glad you brought that up. Of free will. Because you are being manipulated into buying the more expensive product.
So does that mean if I spend all of my money upsizing to large popcorns, I'm not culpable because they manipulated me, taking away my free will? Is that what you just said?
It depends on, do you have knowledge? If you have the knowledge that that's what they're doing and then you still do it, then yes, you should be culpable for that. If you don't, ignorant is bliss, you're naive, then no.
Okay, that's fair.
Like if a person's manipulated into committing a crime that they didn't know about, like for instance, I'll use an example. How do I use this example? You buy something from someone, okay, and the thing that you bought may or may not be completely legal, but you didn't know that at the time. You just bought like a mystery box or whatever, and then illegal stuff came in it. Are you culpable for that?
In the eyes of the law, I'm pretty sure.
Well, in the eyes of the law, that's different though, because the law makes its own rules and its own will.
Well, I mean,
Well, since we're on that, like, what are laws?
law. I don't want to talk about that.
Social constructs that allow us to maintain order, to not have free will.
Dog, listen. If we start talking about laws on here, we're not going to have any listeners because they're going to be like, "Did you hear Bailey tripping about laws for 30 minutes without letting Taylor talk? And every time Taylor tried to talk, he yelled at him to shut the fuck up so that he could continue bitching."
I just want good content. I don't give a shit.
I don't want that.
I just want good content. But no, I don't know. Does that answer your question? Like,
yeah, absolutely. You did a really good job answering my question.
Okay.
I
don't
just,
know.
Have to beat information out of people.
I guess if you want to do that.
Do you have anything else today?
No, I don't. I don't have anything.
So this has been Bailey.
This has been Two Idiots, One Podcast.
And this has been Taylor.
Thank you so much for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening. Have a super jolly good one.
Bye.
Bye. Cancel that. Stop. I'm sorry.